Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by again. Really interesting week so far. 17th of July. A lot going on out there. Really crazy period. We're going to be talking about some interesting stuff today. We've got stuff that we're going to be talking about. We're going to look at what's happening with the crypto cycles at the moment. Where's Bitcoin at the moment? Looking at Donald Trump, what's happened in the news recently with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And how does his position stand with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies overall? We're going to be looking at what's happening with the Kraken update in terms of the Mt. Gox Trust. Again, super interesting news to figure out what's happening in that area, but also looking at property as well and what's happening with the new Labour government and where things are with the interest rates at the moment. But also looking at some other news to pass on to you, which is really interesting. So most importantly, don't stop watching the video, keep watching it to the end. But most importantly, let's get on with this and let's do it. So, as I said, really interesting time, 17th of July. We've got some crazy stuff that's been happening in the markets. What's interesting is we've had interesting news again with Donald Trump. What is going on? We've had obviously news about the attempted assassination. In my eyes, don't know what you think about this. It's just really bizarre how, you know, a guy of that nature going up for presidential elections and attempted assassination, which is just crazy. How the Secret Service didn't cover that particular point where the shot was taken. I wouldn't say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but at the same time, what I do believe is the protection wasn't working from that day clearly. And why wasn't it? It's the most important thing to kind of mention. But what was interesting is that he put out a post on X, which was on July the 12th, talking about basically he's not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. But what's interesting is he's going to be at the Nashville Bitcoin conference talking. We all know Trump is pro crypto. He's really pushing it for the elections. And I think he understands if you obviously tackle the Bitcoiners, you're going to, you know, win extra votes. That goes without saying. But what is interesting is he's kind of having a contrast view. You know, yes, he's all about pushing for Bitcoin and crypto, but there's the other side of it is obviously, I think he's pushing for, you know, yes, votes, but also pushing for the fact that he wants to get regulation out there. So I thought that was really interesting. He's going to be, well, all eyes are on Trump at the moment, right? And from what I keep reading, and you've probably read in all the national press and all media out there, people are going pro-Trump. I personally like Trump. I don't live in the States. I live in the UK at the moment. So I think it's just really interesting how things like this are happening. There's a lot of speculation out on the internet. People saying potentially, this is not my words, this is what people are putting out in the mainstream media. Sorry, when I say mainstream media, I mean social media. With Trump potentially setting this up himself. Possibility, who knows? I'm not here to judge. I just most importantly hope that he's going to be okay, and most importantly that the family are all well. And as a human being, we don't wish that on anybody. So let's see what the future holds, right? With Trump, it's going to be coming up soon. But let's look at what's been happening within the crypto markets. It's just bizarre what's been going on, right? You look at Bitcoin, right? This is as of today, UK prices we're looking at. So 49,659 for Bitcoin. Last 7 days, we've had an 8.8% increase. And what's really nice about looking at these charts is normally, when I present these, we've been having a lot of red, either 20% drops or whatever. It's been dropping a hell of a lot. We get a lot of volatility. But anyway, last 7 days, it's been looking pretty healthy. If we look at Bitcoin, nice little graph to be looking at. We've had a bit of an increase. If you look at Bitcoin over the last 3 months, I was just looking at this earlier on, you get an interesting ride. We did hit 54,000. We're currently at we're at 49,000 at the moment. So we should be breaking through 50,000. the aim of the game with Bitcoin is we've had a lot of issues in the market. We've had Germany government, which I've mentioned on a previous video. They looked at liquidizing ill-gained assets, which they had to do. There was no law that they could not do that unless they create a law to kind of get themselves out of that. Crazy, really, when you think about it. You know, there was a lot of Bitcoin that created the volatility in the markets. So yeah, Bitcoin looking good. I mean, like I say, you go back to 7-day view, it actually gives you a bit of promising factors and what's happening out there. But also, if you go back to 7 days, I mean, as I said to you before, my key coins that I'm investing in myself is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, with some other altcoins as well. But Solana, yeah, we're having a bit of an increase. We had a 10.6 increase, which was better than Bitcoin and also better than Ethereum. Not sure what your views are on those as well, but any comments you've got, guys, let's get a communication going here. Let's get a bit of dialogue. Let us know what your feelings are. Where do you see Bitcoin going? Is it going to be moving up soon, or is it going to be October as the predicted sort of date is sort of published out there? So again, Bitcoin's looking healthy in my opinion. You know, nothing's really changed in my conviction from last week to this week. It's all looking good. And what I like about it is still, funny enough, I watched a really good podcast the other day with Gary Cardone, which is Grant Cardone's brother. And he was talking about property, so real estate versus the Bitcoin asset. And when you look at that, it's really, really interesting to kind of home in on what these top tier investors are looking at within asset classes. And particularly with the case of Gary Cardone, he was talking about, you know, the benefits of moving cash or using Bitcoin as your store of value. So you could potentially have a load of property, you might sell a property in real estate, move that money into Bitcoin, store it, and then basically loan off the Bitcoin for the future. So using it as leverage or selling once you've got a gain on Bitcoin to then buy lower below market value property. This channel and this show is all about going permissionless. And it's about discussing with entrepreneurs, with property investors and business owners alike, how you can make the most out of your money in an inflationary market. And what I always feel is, you know, Bitcoin sits really well with property. You know, I'm yet to look at leveraging my Bitcoin, and that is using it as maybe a yield in the future. I did try that with Celsius and got stung. Fortunately, got my money back. But nonetheless, it's all about what can you do with that asset class for the future. For the moment, I'm just stacking. And then for the future, maybe then we can start to look at allocating, or I can start to allocate leverage against that Bitcoin. And people are starting to do it in the States. There's a few companies that are out there. So my view is it's not about, well, I've been toying with this idea for a while, and I had a guy, really interesting guy, come on for a podcast. Have a look at it. A guy called Leon Wanken. Fantastic guy. He just did a video actually when he was at the Bitcoin, I think it was the Prague conference. And again, he brings up about the differences between the two asset classes, real estate versus Bitcoin. And this is something that's really getting asked a lot with people from the industry in property that I know. They're coming to me and saying, you know, what's your view on Bitcoin? What are you using it for? So my view at this moment in time is still just to stack, right? You'll get a much better return. And again, going back to the Gary Cardone case that I mentioned earlier, he's talking about what can you do with that particular Bitcoin asset class to help benefit your whole portfolio in the future. So I think when you look at things like that and you actually understand it's a really, really critical moment in time with Bitcoin. You know, when you look at those price tags that I just went through a few moments ago, you're looking at Bitcoin, it's just touching the £50,000 mark. You know, if we stick to the theory on what people are talking about, and my conviction is still there, I strongly believe Bitcoin is still going to be 1.1 million maybe by 2030, or the 1 million point. So it's still strong. It's not going to be going anywhere in my opinion. And Bitcoin is just a fantastic asset class to hedge your bets, right? Again, like with anything, and as I put in my disclaimer in the videos, it's all about, this information is about bringing information to you. It's not financial advice. I don't sit here to tell you what to trade on. This is purely my opinion and what I state in these videos is my disclaimer. So what is interesting as well, which I've picked up on, is, I don't know if you guys saw this, it's about Kraken basically. So Kraken this week have essentially they've got the deal signed up with the Mt. Gox distribution. So like what they did with Celsius, with Coinbase, the chosen provider for Mt. Gox funds to be distributed to the creditors is basically run through Kraken. So this is really interesting. That's all going ahead. Again, what happened with Germany liquidizing their Bitcoin, coupled with the Mt. Gox, obviously crashed the price, and it caused us this instability in the market with Bitcoin. So what's happening, if we look at this, it's just like, these guys are basically going to be transferring around 48,000 odd, which is about $3.1 billion to an unlabeled address, most likely associated with Kraken. So this is interesting. Kraken receives the Bitcoin from Mt. Gox trustee payouts anticipated within 7 to 14 days. So that's coming up, but it's good to talk about this because it's what's caused the sort of, if you like, ricochet effect within Bitcoin price at the moment. And people get worried. I speak to people all the time. They're like, are you worried about Bitcoin with what's happened with Germany? Are you worried about what's happened with Mt. Gox? Absolutely not. It's disruption that we could have done without, yes. But actually, at the same time, when you look at it, Bitcoin's resilient. Bitcoin rides above the waves of such news in the market. So I'm not worried. It's good. Again, this show is all about property investors or geared towards going permissionless, right? It's looking at what asset classes you can use to essentially go permissionless within the markets. Is it using Bitcoin? Is it using real estate? For me, cryptocurrency gives us that benefit of going permissionless. And it's looking at what can help you within certainly the UK economy where I live, but you need to be looking at global economies as well. And when I look at that, it's looking at, for example, at the moment, we had that new government, Labour came in. Obviously, it's not good for people that are looking, that are potentially entrepreneurs that have got a property portfolio, because the government are coming after property. So what I like about, or what the message I like about getting out on Go Permissionless is, if you are a property investor, are you a business owner? Stick with us and learn on this journey, and let me bring the news to you, because I'm a property investor, I'm a business owner, but I've got a passion about Bitcoin. Also altcoins as well, but it's all about having that passion to go, right, what else can I do to take myself out of the system? I've got a lot of people that I know that are moving away from the UK, and understandably so. I've got friends that have moved to Dubai purely because of tax and for a better lifestyle. The UK is pretty much going to pot, right? We've got a new government coming after property investors. They're not going to make an easy ride for us to make money. There's talks about rent caps, rent reforms. They're talking about when you go to sell your property, you'll have to offer the property to the current tenant at a preferable rate, whatever that may be. It just seems to be that we're getting more like a dictatorship every day. So it'd be really good to get your thoughts, actually. How do you feel if you live in the UK? What are your feelings? You might be in America or Australia, but give me your thoughts about where you live in the world, but specifically anyone who lives in the UK. What's your feelings at the moment? Are you having a good time? Are you having a bad time? What do you feel like in terms of the market economy? What's happening for you? How do you find it? Do you feel like you're kind of bound by the government? Are you being bent over? Yeah, it's interesting, right? It just makes you think where we're kind of sitting. What I don't want to happen about the UK, because the UK is a beautiful place. I was born here. I love it. But at the same time, the world's a big place. It gives you the options to basically move around. And I think when you look at Bitcoin, it gives you that ability to be, or give the asset class more transportable value around the world. You can't break down real estate in small chunks and sell it. You've got to sell it. You're looking at probably a 90-day cycle minimum to get rid of that property by the time you market it. So it just makes you think, the more research you do on Bitcoin, whether you're a business owner, property entrepreneur, or property investor, or entrepreneur, business owner, it makes you realize actually Bitcoin gives you that kind of flight to safety mechanism. In terms of talking about governments, this all comes back to property and mortgages. And what I saw recently on a news network, which is London Loves Business, great place to read if you haven't if you haven't applied to the mail shot that they send out on a regular basis, daily basis, but also weekly basis for property as well. It's imminent that a cut to interest rates is on a knife edge as inflation remains unchanged at 2%. I think, the US is going to be looking at cutting. I've spoken about this in previous videos, and I seriously think the US is going to go this year. We're going to go as well this year. It's really important to get your ducks in order if you're in property, to look at how you can benefit if you're looking at remortgaging and you're looking at refinancing to take money out of your property portfolio. What I'm doing is, and this is my personal opinion and what I'm doing in my approach, and that is taking money out from refinance and put it into a Bitcoin holding through the business on a balance sheet. So have a look at these options out there. Do your research about that, because, I don't think cheap money is not going to come back to us anytime soon. So it almost makes you want to realize about, let's do some more study about Bitcoin. Let's study about other asset classes that can benefit your portfolio and see what you can do for the future. I've got a really good friend of mine who lives next to me. He's a stocks and shares investor and trainer, and he's very, very big on those sort of markets. And it's interesting to kind of meet with these sorts of people, understand what their thoughts and processes are on investments within those markets. I like to look at a sort of a lateral or horizontal approach about what types of asset classes are available, what's the sort of tax treatment on these particular assets. And I've always been into property. I love property, right? I've done gold, silver, property, and now Bitcoin. What I like about going back about Bitcoin is it just gives you that ability to be more flexible. I said earlier on that you can't break a house down and sell it in small fragments. Bitcoin, you can. It's a fragmentalized asset. You can sell in, small pieces. There's no insurance. There's no maintenance. And there's no running of it. And there's no one person in charge of it. Even a government can't be in charge of Bitcoin. So have a think about these things. But going back to this, it looks like obviously with the inflation remaining at 2%, Bank of England, BOE's decision to lower interest rates remains on a knife edge. So I think, it's imminent. It's going to happen. And if you are looking at remortgaging, then it looks like potentially this year could be the year you might get a more favorable rate. While on that note as well, it's worth just watching this video about, I think it was from Zoopla actually, I picked up this afternoon. And it's worth just kind of understanding what the perception is on what their view is on what's happening with the Labour government with property. And here's a very small, I think it's about a 59-second video, worth a watch. Stick with me and watch it to the end.
So it's official. The Labour Party have won the general election, are going to form the next government. But what does this mean for the housing market? Well, we've had the manifestos, but we need more detail to understand what it really means for homeowners and renters. The most important thing for housing is to grow the economy. We need incomes rising. We need unemployment low, because that helps people pay their housing costs. For renters, we've got rental reforms that are going to come through. Highly likely going to see the ending of no-fault evictions. For homeowners and home buyers, it's all about building more homes. 1.5 million more homes planned over this parliament. And then for first-time buyers, we've got an improved mortgage guarantee scheme that's going to help first-time buyers with small deposits. But we've also got some tax breaks that are currently there for first-time buyers that might well end in 2025, lower stamp duty. And we'll have to see whether Labour keeps those or reverses them. But overall, stay tuned to Zoopla for all the latest news and insights.
So interesting. I take things with a pinch of salt with the government. What might be said yesterday might not be happening today, right? So I hope that gives a bit of news about what's happening in the crypto markets, property markets. Again, if you're an entrepreneur, business investor, or you own a business and you're a property investor, keep tuned to Go Permissionless. Study about what's happening with Bitcoin. How can you make your life easier? And how can you have a better life overall by adding Bitcoin to your balance sheet or to your personal wealth? I did a really good podcast with a guy called Paul Smith. Fantastic, very educated character, very successful. Have a watch out for that video. It's on the YouTube playlist. Have a look at it. Have a catch up about that and see what you think. But in the meantime, please like, share, and comment on this video. Again, as everybody says on YouTube, it really helps the channel grow. And most importantly, may I wish you a fantastic day ahead, and we'll speak soon, guys. Take care.